So we started an agency, and for a year it all went well. When the word of mouth stuff dried up, I realized I don't know how to open opportunities. So this was difficult when I had payroll to meet and, I had staff to pay and I needed new clients, and it got desperate, and I dealt with that the only way I knew how at the time, which is I got blind drunk and decided to write the most absurd cold email I could come up with. And in the morning still thought it was a wise idea to send that email on to very senior people at brands like Hewlett-Packard and Symantec and PepsiCo and other huge names. And to my amazement, it worked.
This is the Ideas Lab podcast, where you can learn from great creative and entrepreneurial minds how to turn your ideas into original businesses, books, and brands. Because in a crowded world, it pays to stand out. This is your host, Jon Williams, best-selling author and founder of the Ideas Lab London. If you've ever written a cold email to someone you don't know in the hope of winning a new project or new client, this episode of the Ideas Lab podcast is for you. Jon Buchan sent a killer cold email almost by accident some years ago, and since then realized he struck gold with a certain way of copywriting that gets much more powerful results in cold emailing people, in email marketing in general, even in Facebook ads, in sales copy. He now runs Charm Offensive, a business that teaches people how to get better results in their copy and their marketing using his unique mix of humor and radical honesty. Hi, Jon. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, good to have you with us. I wanted to speak to you because you do something really interesting called the Charm Offensive, which is it's a free Facebook group, but also a paid program you run with people. And it's all about, well, what is it? I want you to describe it, actually. How would you describe it?
The term Charm Offensive is actually
brilliant
means,
name. That is a brilliant name.
It's expression, a campaign of flattery or cajolement or something like that is how Google defines it. How I came about all of this, I should probably just go into the drunk cold email story. That's
I've got to hear this. Yeah, I haven't heard the whole thing, so I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, so I used to work at digital marketing agencies in London. So when I moved to London 2006 and worked at digital marketing agencies and sort of quit my way to the top. Did well at a place, and then a year later moved to another place, got paid more, and until I thought, I think I can do this better myself. And my brother was working in-house, and he was similarly sort of wanting to move on. So we started an agency, and for a year it all went well. But then I realized, when the word of mouth stuff dried up, I realized I don't know how to open opportunities. Like I knew how to close deals because I'd gone on loads of sales meetings in my time, but I was never I was always a consultant. So I'd go and help close stuff, but I didn't know how to open. So this was difficult when I had payroll to meet and, had staff to pay and I needed new clients, and it got desperate, and I dealt with that the only way I knew how at the time, which is I got blind drunk and decided to write the most absurd cold email I could come up with. And in the morning still thought it was a wise idea to send that email on to very senior people at brands like Hewlett-Packard and Symantec and PepsiCo and other huge names. And to my amazement, it worked.
Can you give us a taste of what this email can? What was the title?
I'll sure. It's the apologies in advance was the subject line, and then it started with you've never heard of me. Hi, I'm Jon. I got your details from a list. Gasp! But hey, at least you're list worthy. That's got to be worth something, right? So basically, starting with the something that most people would not mention at all. I'll start with the most honest thing I can say. I got your data from a list, and then compliment them that they've kind of made it if they're on a list. And it was that kind of email and that kind of thing that got people's attention, and which led to people responding with, I've never replied to a cold email in my 19-year career until today, or this is the best cold email I've ever received, or my personal favorite, which isn't the most gushing, but I think it's the most amusing, which was, my colleague forwarded me your spam email, and we would like to meet you to discuss opportunities, which I've just always found enjoyable, because I don't think that sentence has been typed very much. And after doing this, I realized every time I sent this email, I would just send it to a new bunch of marketing directors. Every time I did it, the same thing would happen. And then I thought, actually, this could use, for any reasonable request, I could use this style. So when we won Symantec, from the ridiculous cold email, we had to get them loads of PR coverage as part of their deal. Again, I had a desperate situation. We had managed to get no coverage for a great piece of content that we created, which may or may not have had something to do with Symantec's internal teams as well. Went into the office on a Saturday, emailed the deputy editor of VentureBeat, a huge technology publication that they have expressed that they wanted to get in. Managed to get him to respond, and he included our infographic, got them on the front page, boom, then loads of other places covered it. I realized from this, I can use this for any purpose I want. So for getting my friends as many job interviews in sectors they've never worked in, did it for that. And over time, I realized, okay, this is what I enjoy doing. And after a sort of bad personal circumstance in 2016, it was about March 2017, I just decided to start the Facebook group. Like, this has helped people. I think it can help a lot more. And I just on a whim kind of started it, and it resonated. And people were very curious about the screenshots, because those kinds of responses, I'd show people the responses I'd get. Nobody expects those from cold emails. So that helped. And then it's now my business. I've got an email list, the Facebook group. I've got loads and loads of templates, courses, trainings, and a subscription. It's all around, using copy and creativity and humor in particular a lot of the times to get a competitive advantage. The biggest example of that is our small little agency was able to get in with companies like Symantec and Hewlett-Packard. It's a great level of this kind of stuff. And now I get to see loads of other people do the same thing of all different kinds, got their first client, got their first dream client, got deals way bigger than I got. And it's awesome because I get to see those results, but I don't have to do any other work involved.
I know.
It's the best.
It's a little bit like my business. I help people start a business, and they go, "Hey, you should go and do that," and then they have to go and do all the work. And then exactly. I go, "Yeah, you worked." Yeah, it's good. I love this. I love the fact that you turned this thing you really wanted to do, which is very specific, into a business that works really well. And I think which is one lesson from it. I think there's another lesson, which is that you've done something very specific. There are loads of people who are business coaches, or probably quite a few copywriting kind of experts out there, but you are doing this very specific thing of how would you describe it? Unconventional or somewhat shocking emails?
Yeah, it's the disarming candour. It's essentially the use of humor and irreverence and refreshing honesty. In a way, it's really ethical stuff. You're just being really upfront, ambitious, meek, and direct. It's essentially, it's using creativity and humor is a part of that to get a competitive advantage. I don't know if I answered your question there. I kind of went off on one.
No, that makes sense to me, and I think that's it's what everyone wants, really, isn't it? We all want honesty. We've had enough of being marketed and sold to. I think that's great. And how many people have you got in your free Facebook group now?
There's 11,000 and something, maybe nearly 12,000 now.
Good. Yeah. And that's the Charm Offensive group. Is that open to anyone if people are listening?
Yeah. Charm Offensive Facebook group. Yeah, there's probably 11,000, maybe 11,500. I'm not the exact figure, but it is the group. And it's a really cool community now. When I started it was mostly just me posting, but it's been going over 2 years now. And so there's loads of other people posting stuff, and it's become quite the unorthodox little community. And it's very cool.
People post examples of adverts that demonstrate radical candor or a little bit edgy, which is, I love that stuff. So I've nicked some of your things and reposted them on my personal profile because they're very funny.
I like the use of radical candor there. I'm going to steal that and use it. Radical candor.
I thought that's what you said. Didn't you say radical?
Disarming candor. But I like radical. Okay. Radical candor probably goes together better phonetically. So
there you go. You can have that.
Will do. Invoice me.
And so does the most money from your business, just because I'm always interested in how people's businesses work, come from the subscription, or does it come from client work, or what?
I don't do any client work at all now. It's all subscription and the standalone, like I'll launch a template pack or do sales. Subscription is the biggest focus, because obviously you want to get, as we know, with any kind of retained income is something you want to achieve. No client work anymore, because I like having, you should see my diary. It's only got things in that I want to do. And I most days there's nothing in there, and then if there is stuff, usually you do it all on one day, and it's only stuff I want to do, and I really love that. So I could probably make a lot of money doing high ticket one-to-one coaching or client stuff, but man, I just love I never have to make another amendment in my life again. Oh, that is just the best thing ever. No one can tell me to do any changes or anything. I love that. And also I like this is far more scalable, and anything that requires one-to-one interaction, you're limited by time unless you outsource, and all sorts of complexity. I like this because it's simple. I can scale it. All I've got to focus on is how many opt-ins per day, how much revenue per day. That's the only metrics I've got to focus on. Yeah, obviously churn maybe, but those really the principal ones. That makes it easy to focus, and you can make changes, and very quickly you can see how the effect it has. I love this business model more than any I've been in before.
That's interesting. And you've got quite a few people in Charm Offensive Pro now. That's the paid subscription, isn't it? How many have you got roughly?
Yeah. There's a few hundred in there. I don't give out the exact.
That's fine. Yeah. So I mean, it's
a few hundred in there.
Significant, yeah. And so and you've said, you started off with cold emails. So somebody who, for instance, is trying to get clients. So anybody who's, for instance, anybody's listening to this, who is a designer or a creative of some sort, or running an agency, or doing professional services, consulting. Those are the kind of people you speak to most, I guess.
Yeah, freelance. So there is a lot of freelancers, and obviously the agency equivalent of freelancers. So any professional service is probably the best, the most. Obviously, the Charm Offensive stuff is the most obviously useful to people offering professional services, I'd say, for sure. Freelancers or agencies or consultancies, yeah.
And so you started off with cold emails, but you mentioned to me earlier that it now applies to all sorts of things. So, I mean, what else can you use this kind of radical candour or disarming candour for?
Well, the most going the other way, when I first started sending the cold emails out, I wanted to, although I was getting loads of responses, I was like, how do I increase my open rate? And I didn't look into cold email at all. The obvious answer would be send a follow-up sequence. I didn't know how to do it. My idea was I'm going to send a letter in the post with the silly ferret sticker attached. In the email, it's just an attachment. Then it's a sticker. And then a few days later, send an email saying with the subject line, sorry for the ferret in the post.
Wait a minute, ferret? What's the ferret thing?
So in the email, I should probably read, if you search the hashtag #FoundTheFerret on Twitter, you'll see people that have taken my letter, the same copy I used to send as an email, but in letter form, and they've put my letter up onto Twitter. And the original email does have an attachment. One of the last lines in the email is, I have attached a picture of a ferret that has been dressed up. According to the internet, his name is Colin. I trust this will charm you into submission. And then I await your profanity-filled response. And then there's this ridiculous attachment. And I started sending that as a sticker. So that's on the other side. You can use technology that's older. And then on the other side, LinkedIn messages, invite messages, follow-up messages, Facebook ads. We've had some success with retargeting ads that use humor to get attention and then get people to buy. Ads to build your email list. It's basically, it's a way of standing out and being more self-effacing and more upfront and honest. It makes you more likable, credible, and when people are smiling or laughing, it's more easily to persuade someone because their guard is down. So there's all these sorts of benefits, and that obviously translates to other media types. So Facebook ads, obviously the exact same copy is not going to work on a Facebook ad just because the context is different. There is no way someone is going to think a Facebook ad is just for them. With an email, if you send a personalized email, that can be one-to-one. So the context is different, and thus the copy has to change. But a lot of the same principles, because it's just humor writing and direct response copywriting, they will transfer over to any channel. In any way where you can convince people with words, this can also be used.
And I'm just looking at your LinkedIn profile here. What's the headline of your LinkedIn profile for people who haven't seen it?
I think it's the drunk cold email that changed my life.
Yeah,
or I wrote a drunk cold email that changed my life.
Yeah. So imagine how boring most of LinkedIn is. And your photo is, what's going on in your photo?
Oh, that's me rescuing a baby and a basket of kittens from a burning building.
which is a good way of getting attention on LinkedIn.
Well, you gotta be authentic and boost your credibility, right? So what better than I remember that night well.
Now, people worry about doing something inappropriate. Oh my God, look, there it is.
Oh yeah, there you go.
That person is going to drop you on your head if you're not careful. It's your assistant. But I like the fact that you're against a green screen. We're going to we can put any background in we want afterwards. So we'll have you on the beach in Hawaii or full of naked people or something like that.
Whatever your mind.
It would just seem appropriate. So it's completely thrown me now. What was I talking about? Okay, so when you send these, or when you used to send these cold emails, and when your Charm Offensive Pro participants send these cold emails, presumably you must occasionally get kickback. Do they not get anyone ever replying and going, "What the hell are you doing? This is totally unprofessional"?
Yeah, but that's good. That's awesome, because you think you never have to deal with those people ever again. Imagine if they didn't react that way. These are the types of people that. Do you think they're going to pay your invoices on time? Do you think the person that replies with in all caps, "You should be more professional," with exclamation points? Do you think that's the ideal client? Do you think they're going to, or is it going to take loads of aggro to get even your invoice paid on time? And then it probably isn't even. I'm making presumptions there, obviously, and exaggerating for effect, but it's kind of true. You can see the logic there. Those are they immediately reveal themselves. Obviously, you're going to get some negative responses, but you are with any kind of cold pitching or cold calling. You're interrupting someone's day, and I've always said that's fair game. If you are interrupting someone's day, you've got to expect sometimes people are going to be angry just because they might have had a shit morning. They get your email. That's going to happen regardless, even if they send charming, funny emails or standard ones. If people are specifically annoyed at the humour within, probably you're not going to be a good match. Whereas if someone replies saying that it made them laugh out loud, you probably share a sense of humour and you're going to get on with that client a lot better. And when those type of clients do reply, they talk to you in informal tone. They're not using the corporate formal tone they're speaking to other suppliers. Immediately you're in there like a friend. That's a huge advantage, and makes doing the business of negotiating and proposing stuff far easier, because you're just talking normally rather than in this staggered sort of fake tone.
Yeah, that's interesting. So have you got any, it'd be nice to give a few more illustrations of the kind of things. Yeah. I'm curious about the Facebook ads, because I'm running some Facebook ads at the moment. Is there anyone you've seen come up with a nice little Charm Offensive style Facebook ad?
Yeah. Well, we ran our own ads that could show. The most obvious one, and this is not really copy, but just kind of visually when it's like the last few hours or the last day of a sale, there's a ridiculously photoshopped image of me with a gigantic countdown clock behind me, and I'm going. So simple things like that to stand out in the newsfeed. I also wrote an ad for a bar near me. It was my favourite bar. I haven't been drinking for a while, but I used to be quite the frequent patron there. I wrote those a funny Facebook ad as well, because I just wanted to get people through the door. And that worked very well as well. Got tons of engagement and got people knowing that this awesome bar was there. But yeah, one thing I want to do is I haven't released an official Charm Offensive Facebook ads pack yet. But that's something I do want to do. I've got lots of plans for that, because I want to make a pack of templates for Facebook ads for people and sales letters for people selling professional services. So if you're a freelance copywriter or marketer, I want to do sales letters for services, and then Facebook ads that drive people to them and get them to convert. That's on the list of things I want to be able to put together. So we've had success. It's just I haven't got an official product yet.
Have you got any ideas for funny ways of mentioning retargeting? Because some people have a difficult reaction. I've seen Frank Kern, who's a well-known internet marketer. He goes, "You're seeing this ad because, as you know, you visited my website and I'm retargeting you." Yeah. So he mentions it kind of with a little smirk on, but have you got a kind of more extreme version of that?
Oh yeah. I say I've in an email, and we've used this. This is actually the copy. Someone took this copy and used it as a Facebook ad, a pro subscriber, and it worked really, really well. Some ridiculous percentage ROI, but it's the email I use for cart abandonment. And it says, so my creepy tracking software tells me that you've neglected to finish your purchase and needlessly postponed handing over your hard-earned money without a second thought, or something like that. go and buy a product on Charm Offensive and then don't finish the order and you'll get an email showing you. But I can send you that, and it continues like that. And then there's another email. There's 2 other emails like that I've got that come after it. But someone took that, used it as a retargeting ad, and had great success with it. So yeah, it's just basically pointing out the thing that most people hide away from, as Frank Kern did there. But I've just added a degree of honesty to it even more, and also took it to a degree where, you know, my creepy tracking software has told me, and then the way of, you know, needlessly postponing handing over your hard-earned money. It's just so honest. Like, that's really what it is. So just say that.
I really like that, and like you say, you know, the people who don't like it won't like you anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah. That's inspiring. It's given me all sorts of thoughts. Awesome. And so, have you any new examples you've got of cold emails that people have been using recently? Because presumably you wouldn't recommend anyone use the exact wording you sent, because you mentioned this story in a few places.
But have a think about how many people are in the world. Like, think about how many people live in a city in the USA, then they get in a state, then the USA, then the whole world. And then think, it's not just the bosses of these companies that you're emailing. There's all sorts of jobs. You know, I would love the idea that that one email was so ubiquitous that people would, but I would be a very, very rich man at that point. You know, I'm not there yet, but I've been releasing new you can still send that original drunk cold email and get results with it, because obviously not everyone in the world has seen it, far from it. But I'm constantly releasing new stuff because, and especially recently, I released a few new packs where I didn't even use any of the same devices or humour that I used in the ones I used to write. So I always want to add new ones because people want to send new stuff. There's different opportunities for sending different cold emails. So I've created one for deliberately sending the gatekeeper. You know, usually there's a PA or a receptionist or whoever so I've got one where you specifically email them and get them to mention you. So there's always new things. So the new pack I've done is the one with the most new templates in it. It's called the Charming Cold Open Template Pack, and it's just got loads of new ones. There's one in there for over the top 5 reasons you should work with us. There's one for sending to dream clients. There's one in there even that admits you're desperate and you really need work at the moment. There's a whole range of them, and people can send them based on their own preferences. There's some in there that I imagine get used less than others. The
one that says you're desperate for work at the moment, can you give us a little insight into how that works?
I can't remember the exact copy in it, but it's taken to the degree where, because obviously the problem with admitting you're desperate is no one wants to do business for the month, but it's done in a way I remember I wouldn't have included it if I didn't think it could actually work on the right people. But I can't remember the exact copy immediately, unfortunately. But it's something where it's like, I think I point that out. I say, I know that you're not meant to mention this, but I actually really, it starts something like there's something like that in there, but I can't remember the exact thing offhand.
And if you do it right and it's with a bit of humour, then I think, you know, people will be intrigued enough to at least read the rest of the email, won't they?
Yeah, they're more likely to respond to that than some really overly pretend confident folks, push your shoulders up, brash. People will far appreciate the honest, human, honest and human approach versus some kind of pretense veneer. I think for people, you know, and people don't expect it. So I wouldn't recommend that as your standard email, the desperate one, but I was just coming up with lots of different emails, and I always throw a few wild cards in there. Because sometimes people buy just because they're like, I need to see what the hell is in that template.
No, that's great. Are there any rules about if you're writing emails? Do you have any kind of rules about how you come up with really good subjects for emails? You know, titles.
That's quite interesting. I am just putting a subject line pack together at the moment. That's what I was doing today. Me and Asher, who used to work at the agency, were putting together a new subject line pack. As far as ideas for subject lines, the one I used to use was apologies in advance. The reason I used apologies in advance was because they don't know my name. I knew, you know, if they're looking on their phone or on a desktop, I know that they don't know my name because we never emailed before, never contacted them. So seeing apologies, why is a stranger apologizing to me? The curiosity gap there, and it still kind of makes sense because you're sending a cold email, so it's still tenuously sort of relevant. So really, curiosity is a big thing with getting people's attention. There's things you can do with personalization as well, but really a combination of personalization and just curiosity generating stuff.
Yeah, it's a very powerful thing, isn't it? And people underestimate how powerful it is. But if you write an email subject line, it just goes like, I need to know what on earth this person is going on about. It's like a sort of loop that isn't quite closed, and it's that perfectionist part of you that wants to line up all your stationery. It's that part of the brain. It just has to have closure on things.
Having something like the drunk cold email that changed my life. I used that as a subject to get on Entrepreneurs on Fire and some other podcasts. That was the subject line I used. The drunk cold email that changed my life. Because there you go, drunk cold email changed my life. That shouldn't go together. A drunk incident should not lead to a life-changing event. That headline actually doesn't say if the result was positive, thinking about it, but it's still, maybe that adds to the curiosity.
Yeah. So did you use that in an email to get on podcast?
Yeah, that was the subject line I used to get on Entrepreneurs on Fire, and Kevin Rogers and Michael Senoff got interviewed by him. So when I was starting out, that's how I got the group to grow, as well as word of mouth. I did loads of podcasts when I started. And then last October, I went on Entrepreneurs on Fire. But yeah, that's the subject line. And that's the line I used to get to the top of Reddit as well. I did a Reddit post where I talked about the drunk cold email. And usually anything on commercial on Reddit is just hated, downvoted. I gave so much away. Like, I gave so much evidence, like links to Twitter screenshots of people saying they love my stuff. And I gave advice on how to write stuff that went right to the top of the entrepreneur subreddit, and the sales one and the copywriting one. No dirty tricks or anything, just put it up and it got there. And that was the headline, the drunk cold email that changed my life. And I was going to put the drunk cold email that made me $1 million in revenue or something like that. But I decided against it because the question then immediately is, well, why are you doing this? Why are you writing this? So I was like, no, change my life. There's those little things, those little details that if you give them attention, it can make a world of difference. And yeah, so that's another. So that headline definitely works. So there's something to that formula of accidental success that people can probably take something from.
Oh, that's fascinating. So if people want to know more about you, they can come join the Facebook group, which you mentioned. But if they search for Charm Offensive, is that what the free group is called? Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah. And also charm-offensive.co.uk. That's our website. You go on there, you can find there's a button where you can get a copy of the drunk cold email and my magic email cheat sheet and other free goodies. And the other place, if you like LinkedIn, you can find me on there. Just search for my name, and you'll find the picture of my profile picture of me, my recent bout of bravery. So any of those three, or all three, if you're so enthused.
That's fantastic, John. I'm inspired now to go and write some radical candour myself, or disarming candour as you described it. Thanks very much.
No problem, man. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Ideas Lab podcast. Please do subscribe, and if you've enjoyed this episode, it would be great if you could leave us a review. You can get links and details of everything mentioned in the podcast in the show notes, along with photos and video clips from many of our episodes. Just go to theideaslab.org/podcast.